Today I'm going to be mounting my Zeiss Conquest V6 scope onto my Sacco Finnlight 300 WinMag using these Optilock rings and bases. Now, one of the important things is that you want to make sure you select the right rings for your scope and bases for your rifle. Now, I'm going to be using the 30mm low rings. Sacco has a handy little chart that will help you select the right ones. Now I've got my rings and my bases all out of the packaging, scope's ready, and the Torx screwdriver's ready. So the first thing we want to do is mount our rings to our bases. Now the base has a little bit of a recess right here, and that's really important in order to align the ring and the base, because it's really important that this part gets flush. So we'll just attach the screw. And what I do is I just have it just a little snug, because you can see it can turn a little bit, so you still want to make sure it's flush. Now I want to tighten it, and I just actually have it flat on the counter there. And now I take my Torx screwdriver and I have it set to 44 inch-pounds. And I want to tighten it until it clicks. There we go. So now we have it set, and I'll just make sure and it's completely flush. And so now we do the same thing for the other ring and base. Now our next step is to attach our bases to our dovetail. Now the rear base has a recoil stop that fits into the recoil groove on the dovetail. Once that's slid all the way forward and it's in place, we know it's going to be flush with the ejection port. So we take this little locking piece, and you want to make sure the groove here is at the bottom so it slides into the dovetail. And we just want to screw this in. And what we want to do is make sure it's tightened. And what I'm going to do is just push this forward and make sure it's all the way to the ejection port before I tighten it to 80 inch-pounds. Whew. Okay, now we add the front base and slide it onto the dovetail. Now, what you can see is it can actually slide all the way forward here. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that this is flush with the ejection port as well. It's really important. You again take that locking piece, making sure the groove is on the bottom. Slide that in, and I'm just going to tighten it with my fingers a little bit first. And that way I can ensure that it's still flush. So you can see I still get movement there. So I want to make sure before I tighten it to 80 inch-pounds that it's completely flush. Holding it there. There we go. I just want to double check everything's flush. Unlike many rings, you don't have to lap Optilocks because of these plastic inserts. Now what you want to do is carefully fit the plastic ring onto your scope tube. What you want to do is make sure that the openings are on the side of your tube. What we're going to do is place this onto the lower rings. Again, making sure that your openings are on the side. Now we want to take our upper rings and place them on the scope tube. And now we'll screw them into place. There we go. We've snugged the last screw. We want to have it just snug enough so that we can rotate the scope and move it backward and forward so we can set our eye relief. The only way to do that is to look through our scope. Shoulder the rifle and just put your cheek where it naturally falls. Now, if you don't get a perfect circle, what you want to do is just move your scope rearward or forward until you do. Now what I like to do is just shoulder the rifle a number of times quickly so that I know I'm getting the same sight picture. Well, that looks good. Now it's time to put it back in the vise. Now our next step is to level our rifle in the vise. Now we take our level We place it in here. And first make sure the rifle is level in the vise. That looks good. Now we want to take our next level, place it on top of the turret. And what we want to do is make sure that the two levels match up. We do that by rotating the scope until the two bubbles match up. That looks good right there. Okay, now we can remove these and we can start tightening up these screws. What we want to do is make sure that these spaces all around match up perfectly. They have equal spacing. So we'll just tighten these all up. And then what we want to do is tighten them up to the specified 15 inch-pounds. There we go. They're all torqued. Now one last check. Looks good. Now we're ready to hit the range.